You're on record today for a review on mom's case and the initial disposition for the father of the child. We've had a bench conference, and I'll let the attorneys address any content of that they wish to on the record after appearances.
Lee Heiss, lawyer, guardian ad litem.
Ms. Sasha Thomas, counsel for the department. Ms. Madrid.
Francesca Madrid, foster care worker from Fostering Solutions.
Michael McFarland, representing mother. Please introduce yourself.
Mother Carla Collier.
Michael Brooks, I represent the legal father, Sean Smith. Mr. Smith, are you available or present?
Deputy Ames, would you double check the hallway for us, please?
Your Honor, I believe he's incarcerated in Washington State.
Actually, I think it's in Alaska, isn't it?
No.
Washington, but the name is Sean Thomas, not Smith.
Always up to Your Honor.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, if I've got the last name wrong, it's Sean Thomas, and I'm sorry.
Okay. Appreciate you correcting that, and we will try to, I guess, I don't know. What do you think, Ms.
The name
Thomas?
on Your Honor, in my own defense, the official report that I'm reading identifies him as Sean Thomas. You'll find that on the first page of the report.
Very good.
Oh, and I have him as Smith. So yes, it's Sean Thomas. I'll correct it.
Very well.
Request was made to the prison.
Okay, so we did put in a request for your client to be present. Mr. Brooks, my assistant, is trying to contact them to see if we can remind them that we have requested his presence. In the meantime, why don't we do the review on mother's case? They have the right to have separate proceedings, and they are in fact quite dissimilar in their situations. So let's go ahead and take the review for mom, and then as soon as we get your client, we'll head into his initial disposition proceedings.
Point of order, Your Honor. Do you want us to put on the record the sidebar?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want to start?
I can, Your Honor. I had mentioned some of my clients' desires about raising the child in a particular belief. She is not, I had a conversation with her, she does not wish to enroll the child in a Native American tribe, but she does identify as pagan, and she wants to know what, I'll be asking the question, what is being done to raise the child in that atmosphere that she espouses to. I think there was also a discussion regarding an allegation against my client threatening a worker. That will come out in testimony today. I think that's the extent.
Any comments about the sidebar, Ms. Thomas?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Brooks?
Can I inquire? Pagan is a pretty broad brush. What particular
Viking pagan. Norse pagan.
Norse pagan.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any comments about the sidebar, Ms. Heiss?
No, thank you. I think it's been covered.
All right, very good. May I have your report when you're ready?
Thank you. I visited with the child.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I was wondering where the tribe was, and I double checked the proof of service, and it does not appear that the tribe was given notice of at least the report. I'm not sure if they have notice of the last hearing because I did attend, so I just wanted to double check with the court's records that the court was able to give them a copy of the order so they knew about today.
Yes, on February 12th, 2023, there is a proof of service that indicates that the order of adjudication and the order of disposition was served on the ikwa@nunashiak.org email address that the Native Village of Buckland has requested us to provide that notification to you. Of course, the order of adjudication and the order of disposition would have had today's date and time in it. Does that help?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, so they have had notice. Anything else?
I have a question, Your Honor, an initial question. In an effort not to say something that is politically incorrect, could I have the formal name of the indigenous Alaskan tribe so that I can reference it specifically by name?
It is the native village of Buckland.
Thank you.
And I do think that they should be served with the court reports as well. I think you have a good point there, Ms. Thomas. That would be on your workers to make sure that that gets done in the future. And in fact, you should probably send it along as soon as possible from this one.
Got it.
Anything else?
No.
Ms. Heiss?
Thank you, Your Honor. I visited with the child face to face. She has her needs met in the current placement. It's a highly specialized placement that meets her needs. She is enrolled in a private school that is especially accommodating to some of her needs. I observed a visit between the child and mother, and the good news is mother has the parenting ability, which is one component of all of this. Some people get it confused with every component, whether she can manage a child. And it's really lovely to see a parent and child really enjoying their time together. As the case progresses, I would expect that first of all, the Samaritas evaluation will get it in full, and then mom will start to get some more education around this child's needs so that she can respond in a way that the child to help support the child's special needs. And I mean that with a small special needs. It's not, I don't mean it as a term of art that she has any disability. I don't mean that, but I think that she has certain responses will be productive with her and certain responses won't. So for example, to be more concrete, the child kind of runs the show in a visit. And I think that there will come a time when mother with the right tools will be able to structure the visit so that she can have the authority in the environment. And until then, the child is safe in her visits. I recommend we continue the visits, and as mom gets more stable with housing and her employment continues, I know she'll be able to do better about bringing the meals and that kind of stuff. I don't think there's a lot of pressure on mom, but I think we're really early in the case, and it'll be good to support these folks towards reunification. Thank you.
Ms. Thomas?
Thank you. If Ms. Madrid can please be sworn in.
Okay, proceed at will.
Thank you. Ms. Madrid, how are you involved in this matter?
I have been the foster care worker since removal.
And did you provide a court report for today's hearing? And what documents were also included in the court report?
The case service plan for Ms. Collier, the case service plan for Mr. Thomas, and the preliminary report from Samaritas.
Thank you. And what currently do you believe that there is a substantial risk of harm to the child if the child were to be returned to Ms. Collier's care and custody today?
Yes, there would be an exposure to parental instability, improper supervision, safe and stable housing, and additional abuse and neglect.
In addition to that risk of harm, are there any other barriers to reunification?
At this time, we are working towards emotional stability. She does have a CMH caseworker, and she is taking medications that are prescribed through CMH. She will be starting individual therapy through CMH very soon. She does participate in EMDR therapy every other week through CMH as well. She just recently started a trauma-informed parenting class that is about 8 weeks. And she just recently secured employment and housing.
What active efforts has the agency made for this family to help address the barriers to reunification?
Yes, so I have created an extensive assessment of the circumstances for Ucha and her family, and we are focusing on safe reunification as the goal. I have identified appropriate services in helping Ms. Collier. We have transported Ms. Collier to the trauma assessment. We have transported her to the psychological assessment. The foster family has purchased several books for Ucha specifically from her tribe. And we are working towards the ICPC requests.
So I do have an update from my assistant. He contacted the prison or the jail where we last knew Sean Thomas to be located, and they reported to him that he was released yesterday. So that's all the information we have at this point about your client, Mr. Brooks.
Thank you.
Go
Thank you,
ahead, Ms.
Judge.
Thomas.
Ms. Madrid, how would you describe Ms. Collier's level of compliance with and benefit from her case service plan?
During this reporting period, she is compliant with her case service plan. She has engaged in services and completed intakes to begin working towards benefiting from those services. And she secured employment at the end of January. And she also secured housing. I just have not been able to verify if that's safe housing.
In your report, you indicate that she was living at Share the Wealth, I believe. Is that, so that's changed?
Yes, she moved in with a friend, and that is the only adult in the home currently.
Oh, I'm sorry. Waiting for background checks or something, correct?
Yes, I have not done that.
I'm sorry, did you say she's the only adult in the home?
No, her and another individual.
Okay,
There's 2 adults in the home.
thank you.
There's only 1 other adult in the home.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you believe that the child's placement in foster care is necessary to continue to safeguard the child?
Yes.
And do you believe that the current placement is meeting the needs of the child?
Yes, yeah.
And you indicated that placement has made an effort to purchase books regarding the child's tribe. Are there any other activities or materials that are in the home that help the child remain connected to her cultural roots?
Yes, it is my understanding as well that during Ms. Collier's parenting times, she is working on teaching Ucha her native language.
Wonderful. In your report and in your testimony, you've made a comment of parental instability. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Yes, she has had appropriate interactions with Ucha. There's just that concern of her ability to manage all of Ucha's needs as well as her needs with her instability.
So I'm not sure that was an answer to my question. I'm more curious what you mean by her instability. Are you talking about her emotional instability, her transient lack of housing instability? I'm just curious what you mean by that.
So by instability, I mean her emotional instability as well as being transient, leaving very early in the case or fleeing the state, as well as the instability of being able to manage appointments and things like that. We did provide her with a planner, so that is helping, but we are just monitoring her ability to be able to manage all of those things.
Thank you. Overall, how would you describe her ability to work with you?
Very well.
Okay. And do you have any concerns about, actually strike that question. Thank you. As relates to the primary, or I'm sorry, the preliminary letter coming from Samaritas, have you been able to start on any of those referrals recommendations? I believe the trauma-informed parenting was one of them. Is there anything else from that?
Yes, the foster parents have created a safe space in the home surrounded by books and pillows and blankets in order to give Ucha a comforting and soothing space. That was one of the recommendations, as well as she is already engaged in occupational therapy through IV rehab. That was another recommendation. So they are working towards benefiting and working on her fine and gross motor skills. And then she already is engaged in EMDR therapy as well through CMH.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have no further questions of Ms. Madrid and would move to admit the court report with the attachments.
No objections.
I have no objection.
I take no position at this point since I don't have a client.
Thank you. I will receive the court report and the attachment. Do you have any questions for this witness, Mr. Brooks?
Well, I think I do. Ma'am, the mother, Carla Collier, is she a member of a recognized Native American tribe or band?
No.
She is not.
Correct.
Do you know whether her daughter is eligible for membership in a Native American Indian tribe or band?
Yes, it is my understanding she is eligible, and that is something that Ms. Collier was working towards with her CMH caseworker.
What does it mean she's working towards it?
I believe they had to fill out an application, and she can maybe give a better update on that.
She being whom?
Ms. Collier.
And would that be through her father or her mother's heritage?
Mr. Thomas.
Mr. Thomas. Not Mrs. Collier.
Correct.
There are some pretty serious charges alleged against Mr. Thomas in your report. But apparently, we've just found out he's been released. And I really don't expect you to know the answer to this right now, but could you investigate and find out if those charges are still pending or not?
Yes, I will.
And let me know.
Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, when, if any, what if any contact have you had with him?
I have not had any direct contact with him. I have had direct contact with the jail where he was residing, as well as the attorney that was prosecuting his case. But they just informed me that there was a trial that started on the 12th, and I have not had an update since then.
Oh.
That was just 2 days ago?
Yeah. So I believe there must have been an outcome from that trial. I'm not sure. I will get an update to the court.
May I have a follow-up question, Your Honor?
Yes.
Do you have the name and phone number of this prosecuting attorney?
Yes, I do. I can get that to you.
All right. Your Honor, does the court wish to wait until the no longer on Zoom or whatever to get the information?
Yes, please.
Then I have no further questions.
Mr. McFarland?
My client indicates she's had some difficulty navigating the process for registering the child with the tribe. Is that something you could perhaps sit down with her and assist her through that process?
Yes, I can. And I can work with her CMH case manager as well.
Okay. My client also indicates that she was raising the child in a particular religious belief, which is Norse paganism. What steps have you done to maintain the child being raised in that belief?
I was just made aware of that today, so I will be looking and exploring that and making sure that we address any things that we can address.
Let me ask you, when did you reach out to ask mom what belief she practiced with the child?
I did not.
So when a child is placed, how do you know what religious belief to raise them in if that question's not asked? Just curious.
I do not have an answer for that.
Okay, so you will get with her to to find that out, correct?
Yes, I will.
That means maybe online or through books, or you'll contact mom to see how she does that, right?
Yes, and I mean, she's the expert, so I'll rely on her to get that information.
Okay. I know mom moved here from out of state, correct? Because she was not living in state when this case was open. Do you agree with that?
She was here when the child was removed and then she
Okay.
fled.
Well, she returned to the state, correct?
Yes,
And she now has a job here in Michigan, I'm told, correct?
yes,
And she's now asking, you're now doing an investigation on a place where she's living, so she's living here in Lenawee County, correct?
yes.
So what is your belief that she might be a flight risk? 'Cause I thought I heard that.
Just based off of her history, and she was staying at the shelter during the majority of this reporting period, but did just recently secure that housing, so.
Okay. If this house turns out to be appropriate, what does that mean as far as the case?
If it turns out to be appropriate and it's something that she can demonstrate over time, then we can look at exploring visits there, as well as, taking each other there and spending time there over time.
Okay. It was brought to my attention that it's alleged my client threatened maybe perhaps a child protective services worker. I don't see that in your report. Would you agree with that?
Yes,
Do you know anything about the allegation?
it's my understanding that a police report was made on February 9th based off of something that she reported to her case manager as regarding the CPS worker.
So it was a discussion that my client had with the case managers. It was something that she reported to the case manager. Is that what you're telling me?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. You've not had any issues with my client in the way she interacts with you. Would that be correct?
Correct.
Okay. I know there's quite a lot of things to do on her case service plan. So we could prioritize. Where do you think her priority would best be spent if you could assist us?
Yes, so the best thing would be to following any and all of the recommendations that are going to come from the psychological evaluation, and then as well as beginning and engaging and benefiting from her individual counseling that she'll be getting through CMH, continuing working on the attachment therapy through CMH for UTA, and then maintaining her employment and housing.
I don't see this in your report, but my client visited me in my office, which is great because most don't, but she reported that Linda Edwards took her to a doctor's appointment for the minor child, but nobody informed Ms. Edwards or my client that the appointment had been canceled. Are you aware of that?
I am not aware of that, no.
Do you have any reports from Linda Edwards regarding her transporting your visits or anything?
I do not, no.
Okay. I guess what would be the procedure going forward? So my client and Ms. Edwards, apparently she doesn't get paid if there's no appointment at the other end, that this doesn't happen down the road.
We could definitely put in more communication lines in order for Ms. Collier to get information directly, maybe from the caregiver. So there's no lapse in time and she's receiving that information directly.
Okay. No further questions, thank you.
That's nice.
In my experience, CMH won't prepare a letter for our regular reviews. Would you be willing to get a release from mother so that we can look at her raw records from CMH so that she can have credit for EMDR and her medication compliance and her attendance and all those kinds of things?
Yes, and then I believe she would be willing to sign a release as well.
Okay, and then, that concludes my questions. Thank you.
Any redirects, Ms. Thomas?
For your honor.
Any cross-examination, Mr. Brooks, Mr. McFarland?
No, thank you.
I think I asked you, did I not, ma'am, if you had any home address information or phone number for Mr. Thomas?
I do not have that information for him, no.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. You may return to your seat. Any other witnesses, Ms. Thomas?
No, your honor.
All right, Mr. McFarland?
We don't believe there's a need for my client to testify. She understands what's required of her in the plan.
Very good. Mr. Brooks?
I have no clients. I have no witness.
Ms. Hext?
No witnesses today, thank you.
Very well. Well, Mr. Brooks, your client was here at the last hearing. He was given verbally on record notice of the initial disposition set for today.
That's an
Obviously,
statement, Your Honor.
I'm sorry?
Your statement is accurate.
Thank you. I appreciate you confirming that. I raised that point because his initial disposition is set for today, and I would be inclined to proceed in his absence, given the fact that he has notice, unless you have any objections.
I don't know. Does he have notice? Would he have any evidence? Well, the notice would be his presence at the last hearing, wouldn't it?
Yes. And there was a copy of the order setting the date. Let me double check that, but I think that got emailed over to the jail too. Now, I don't have proof of service that he received it. But he was certainly here at the last hearing to hear this date.
Maybe when I get a hold of the prosecutor in Washington State, I'll find out how to contact him.
All right. Ms. Thomas, any objection to proceeding with the disposition?
No, Your Honor, I would just call Ms. Madrid back to the stand.
All right. Ms. Madrid?
Thank you. Ms. Madrid, as relates to Mr. Thomas's case service plan, have you had the opportunity to discuss that with him?
I have not.
Okay. And when you developed that case service plan, what tools or information did you use to develop it?
I primarily use the removal petition.
And do you believe that as it's written, it would address the barriers to unification with Mr. Thomas at this time?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead if you have anything else.
The only thing is that it was divided into two parts. One part is during his incarceration, and then the other part is if he's released. So now that he was released, I will need to change that.
Okay. And I guess we don't really know what's happening with the case, but apparently he is released. So, okay. And during this review period, have you been able, or since he was adjudicated, have you been able to start any voluntary services with him or send any information to him?
The only thing I've been able to send is the case service plan and then the updated court reports to him.
Okay. And as it relates to reunification for him, that's also a permanency goal for the child, and that includes father, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you, in your earlier testimony, stated that the agency is working with ICPC for placement inquiries in, I believe it would be California and Alaska. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that's through Mr. Thomas's family, right?
Yes. An aunt and grandparents.
And you still don't have any updates from ICPC on those points?
I do not. I have maintained contact with the relatives.
Okay. All right. Do you believe that it's appropriate for the court to adopt the case service plan for Mr. Thomas at this time?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have no further questions for Ms. Madrid.
Cross-examination, Mr. Brooks.
Absent any direct contact with my client, what is the benefit, other than building up a case against him, of adopting a case service plan that he knows nothing about?
I do believe that the case service plan addresses all of the reasons that which I came into care, but I did not have a chance to review that with Mr. Thomas. No.
Which leaves my question unanswered. Do you agree with me? He knows nothing about this document?
Yes.
So how can he either A, obey it, or B, disobey it if he doesn't even know it exists?
I don't have an answer to that question.
I have nothing further.
Mr. McFarland?
I don't think the question's been asked. Do you believe that you're taking active efforts as is required in this case?
Yes.
Is there anything other than what you've testified that would consist of active efforts?
No.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Ms. Heiss?
The case service plan for Mr. Thomas also includes commitments by the agency, is that correct?
Yes.
And so in the end, we can change the case service plan at any time that Mr. Thomas starts participating and seeking benefit services, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
So if he reaches out to you for visits and that kind of thing, we would have a guideline to support him in a potentially reunification, correct?
Yes.
Thank you, nothing further.
I need to redirect?
No, Your Honor.
No.
Thank you for your testimony. You may return to your seat. All right. Any other proofs as it relates to the disposition today?
No.
No, Judge.
Nope.
No.
Very well. Comments on the review as well as the initial disposition, beginning with Ms. Thomas?
Thank you, Judge. At this time, we are asking the court to enter in the initial disposition order for Mr. Thomas. He has been adjudicated. And the case service plan as written allows for the agency to provide services that are required or that would help address those barriers to reunification with him. And when he avails himself or when he is located, then he can also be made aware of those and continue to move forward. As stated on the record, he did have notice of today's hearing. As it relates to the review, we're asking for a standard 90-day review. I don't think that this case is calling in asking for anything special here. I think parenting time as is appropriate. We are still waiting on the formal results of the CTEC and of mom's psychological evaluation, at which point we will have more information and how case management may be affected by that, including things like parenting time. But for now, we are asking that the parenting time continue to be supervised. And we have a standard 90-day review. Thank you.
Any comments, Mr. Brooks?
I can't have too many with no input from my client. I really want to make sure that Ms. Madrid doesn't forget to give me that name and phone number in Washington. I think once I've talked to my client, I may have some comments, but not yet.
Well, Mr. McFarland?
Well, we appreciate that the worker is going to assist my client in enrolling the child in the tribe. It can be sometimes hard to navigate these things. We also sense now that the worker is going to be raising the child in a particular belief. She is not, I had a conversation with her, she does not wish to enroll the child in a Native American tribe, but she does identify as pagan, sensitive to the cultural, religious doctrine and beliefs of my client. The child will be raised in those in foster care, as I believe is the norm. My client has a clear path of what she has to do. Will be clear once we have the psychological evaluation results. I would hope that if the house checks out fine, that what the worker described as progressing to visits at the home and perhaps expanding to unsupervised will indeed be incorporated, maybe even within this next 90 days. Thank you.
Yeah. Ms. Heiss?
I have no comments, thank you, Your Honor.
Well, the court finds all interested parties were given notice for purposes of today's review hearing. I was able to obviously listen to the testimony of our witnesses today, as well as review the court report and attached information. For purposes of establishing the initial disposition and the case services plan for Mr. Sean Thomas, I do concur with Ms. Heiss. In addition to my prior ruling that an adjournment is not necessary, given the fact that he was told about the date for today, but also that it continues to be pertinent for the department to understand and abide by their obligations, and that as soon as Mr. Thomas either reaches out or is found, he would have the opportunity. I'm confident Ms. Madrid would work with him to tailor a plan that would best suit his circumstances once we find out what those are. So for those reasons, the initial disposition order will be issued today with the case services plan. We will attempt to serve it to Mr. Thomas at the last known address, but if we can find an email address for him too, Ms. Madrid, if you could pass that along to the court as soon as possible so that we can start utilizing that to make sure that wherever he's at, he may have access to that, at least digitally. I really appreciate that. We still have Ms. Collier's email, and she was served as well. And with a copy of the proposed exhibits for today, she had access to her attorney as well. Thank you to our advocates, by the way, for your work on the case and with the parents as much as you can, especially Mr. Brooks in that situation. We appreciate you taking the time to try to reach out and locate your client as well. And Ms. Madrid will be doing that, I'm sure. There are active efforts being made in this case. Active efforts versus reasonable efforts would include things as tailored to the case as possible, which includes the information from the tribe as they're able to give it, and the materials that the foster placement and I'm sure the foster care caseworkers are helping find on the native village of Buckland. We will continue to keep them updated on our court hearings, and Ms. Madrid will also pass along a copy of this latest court report to them as well at the email address that they requested us to send that to. The additional examples of active efforts would also include meeting with and helping Ms. Carla Collier schedule appointments, offering those transportation services to and from different things, even though unfortunately we had a little bit of a lapse in communication about doctor's appointments, but those extra services like transportation, the planner, the materials for the online parenting class, all of those things are examples of active efforts. It's going the extra mile, if you will, for a parent. A foster care caseworker really only has an obligation to make referrals and to check in with the parent on a monthly basis. So Ms. Madrid is making active efforts above and beyond that. And those are exemplified in her witness testimony as well as examples of that contained in the court report today. The child is in the safest and least restrictive placement at this time. We would need Ms. Collier to establish stable housing, show us that she's able to maintain that employment and housing. We need to find the results of the psychological evaluation to make any additional referrals. Congratulations on getting into CMH services and EMDR therapy. I know that can be challenging. So it takes bravery to do that, and I want to commend you for that today. Keep on with those services and engagement with your daughter, who is also undergoing those services, so that we can see that you would be able to present a home for her that would be alleviated from the risk that we've seen in the past, that a child needs a stable, safe environment where she can have her needs met. And so that's what we're asking you to establish before she can be returned to you full time. For the other additional reasons that I don't want to explore on record today, in light of wanting to simply commend Ms. Collier on her progress, the child will remain in services until she's been able to reach those goals for some of the reasons that were explored on record as far as Ms. Madrid looked at those issues that would continue to form the risk of harm associated with allowing the child to return to her mother full time. Our next review hearing I would like to offer to you for both parents. At this point, it would be mom's second regular review and dad's first regular review would be April 30th, 2024 at 1:30 p.m. That's an afternoon hearing set so that if the tribe is able to or prefers to engage from Alaska, and if Mr. Thomas is available to us, the time zone change would make that easier for them to participate in the afternoon. So that's another way we're trying to reach out to the tribe and to Mr. Thomas to engage them. We'll see you back here on April 30th at 1:30 p.m. for our next set of hearings. Any questions?
My client wait on the hall.
Excuse me.